Hi folks, we're looking at the Adaptive Text tool, and after you've installed it, it'll be here in your Essential Graphics panel. This is what it looks like with the thumbnail. This is the 4K version. I'm going to drag it down into the timeline, and you won't see anything because you need to input the license key here. If you purchased it, well, you should have purchased it. It'll be in the receipt or an email sent by myself and Broadcast Gems. Alrighty. I'm not going to input the key here, obviously, because we're recording this, but I've got a copy of it, and this is what it looks like. Once you put in the license key, the default text is this, and that's also the default animation. And as you can see, it plays back in real time on a very old machine. This is the test machine that I use for development and for testing. Alright, so by default it's 12 seconds long. It's got a transition in and it's got a transition out. Transition in starts at the start, transition out starts at 6-second mark. Now this thing starts at 13 seconds, so at the 19-second mark on my timeline, 6 seconds from the start, it will begin to animate out. Very slow, and then it'll pick up speed as it goes on. Now for transition in, there's a speed property, and for transition out, there's also a speed property, so you can make some adjustments there. But if you're going to work with the default, once it goes off screen, you can actually do a cut there and delete that, so you don't need that if you're just going to stay with the default durations. So very quickly, text comes in. Now the top section here, you pick your frame size that you're working in, and it should tally with your sequence settings in terms of the frame size and frame rate. 4K version, you've got options for single or double frame rate. Double frame rate means 50, 59.94 or 60 frames per second. Alrighty, that's frame rate, frame size, and then now we've got the paragraph alignment. You can switch paragraph alignment if you have more than one line of text input. Right, so left, right, center, and notice as you change paragraph alignment, the position stays locked in. Next, we've got auto position, and the auto position works very much similarly to the Adobe Premiere Pin tool or responsive design workflow. Right, I've got no icon, but I've got a menu where you can select your auto positions to lock into. So these are required, or this is very critical for when you want this adaptive text tool to work seamlessly across different frame sizes. Alright, so it splits up your frame into a 3x3 grid. So you've got 3 positions at the top, 3 in the middle, and then 3 at the bottom. Alright, so the first 3 will be the top 3, then followed by Y center would be Y center of your frame, and then the last row, which is right at the bottom. So we got the left edge, X center bottom, and then right edge bottom there. So these are your pin tools or your pins for you to lock in your text box. Once you've locked them, you can change their positions. Alright, so the value here, position offset, is based on your auto position that you selected here. So in this case, I've selected top left or left edge top. Now naming convention starts with X and then Y. Alright, think about it a little bit. So left edge means the X, and then top means the Y. And that's how the naming convention works, if that helps you a little bit better. Now, if I were to pick right edge top, it's gonna stick to the right edge top, and then I can offset it in this manner. So the values here are relative to the values there. Okay, now it's going to be quite different from a lot of other apps that you use, but with this setup that I made, with this single property here, I can work with any paragraph alignments and any of the auto positions. Ready? So I'm locked, my auto position is locked to the left edge bottom. It's this guy here. If X is positive, it moves to the right. If Y is positive, it moves upwards. Again, relative to the auto position. What's interesting about this is what's interesting and useful is that if I switch now to right edge bottom and switch paragraph alignment to right, you can see I get very much a mirrored layout, but this time on the right side. And I didn't have to make any changes here. Same way if I were to set this to right edge top, it would be 100 pixels from X, which is right top, that means 100 pixels from here, and 100 pixels from Y, which is the locked anchor point, the top right there. Things get a little bit confusing only when we come here. Now, if I were to pick X center, Y, that means I should set this to 0, 0, and then the center of this guy will be exactly at the center of my frame. Alrighty? And set it to center. And left. Now, when it's set to X center, Y center, Y positive, it moves down, Y negative, it moves up. And then X positive, it moves right, X negative, it moves left. Again, everything is relative to my auto position. Okay, so when it's set to one of the Y center auto positions, you can get negative values moving upwards and positive values moving downwards, which is a bit different if you were to lock to one of the other options here. In this case, if I set it to negative, it's going to move downwards. Alright, so you just have to get used to that. That's the only slight awkwardness, but it allows us to work with just one property controlling positions for 9 anchor points. And it's also because using After Effects MoGRT, there's no way for the position property to update when we switch frame sizes or when we've got different lock positions. Right, so this is as good as it gets now. Anyways, so quickly text input here, and then you've got your font thingies, opacity, all this should be straightforward. Right, set this to 0. I'm gonna set my anchor lock position to the top left, set it to nice values 150 and then 220 for Y. Right, so 150 for X, that means from the left edge here, 150 pixels, and then from the top 220 pixels down. Now, calculation of the pixel values is dependent on the frame size. It is 1:1 if it's HD 1080. If it's one of the other frame sizes, the actual values here may not represent pixel values on a 1:1 basis. Again, this is because when frame sizes are other than HD 1080, the position values for an After Effects MoGRT, also known as AE MoGRT, does not update to reflect that. So anything other than HD 1080, the values here are not 1:1 in terms of pixels exact position in the frame. So you gotta do a more visual layout. Okay, so quickly we're here now. This is fun stuff. You can do an outline effect. Not so nice for text like this, but if you have big text, looks more interesting. And although the slider for font size, which is this guy here, maxes out at 400, there you can actually scrub even higher values. Alrighty, so I'm just gonna undo once, twice, back here, and gonna undo or uncheck the outline effect. It's a initial raise cap effect. So when I enable it, the initial character will be raised, and I can set the scale for that raised text or character, and I'll have to manually adjust the position there. Now it continues to work across the different paragraph alignments. Okay, so that's nice. Once you make adjustments for the scale and the position adjustments, you're good to go regardless of the paragraph alignment. Now, as you saw the first time I ran this, plays back instantaneously for the transition in, and it's transitioning in based on words. You can do character, you can do lines, and then word random. There's also character random. Right, these are all quite popular and useful. And you can speed things up. Right, so just twice as fast now. And another way to make things look quicker is there's a section for the animated properties. So amplitude for position, default is 100. If I set it to 200, what's going to happen is, now it's coming in, or the transition in is animation style is sliding from below. These are the other options. Sliding from top, right, left, and then a fade in, meaning no position amplitude is being adjusted. So as you can see, this at 200, it's about there. It's a lot lower. 100 is there. At 300, it's a lot lower. So its starting point is a lot lower since we're sliding in from below. Right, now what that effect does is it actually makes it look a lot faster. The movement is more vivid, more exciting, more interesting. Right, so this is how you mess about with the amplitude. And of course you can play with some of the other properties, the scale here, just tracking. You can do a bit more extravagant animations. And remember, there's no keyframes that you need to mess about with. All the keyframes have already been set up, and you still have quite a lot of options available. Set scale back to 100, which is the default, so that whatever animations we see, it's irrespective, or it disregards scale. So the scale will be consistently at 100% throughout the transition process. Okay, what else? Yep. Next will be the transition out. And transition out is pretty simple. The default here is same as transition in, and same one. Okay, we're actually looking at the animation component, so it's based on this guy here. So default, I have it animating by word. I'm just going to remove the track and set it to 0. Here's a quick tip. Hitting spacebar here does not zero that value. Either type in 0 or Control X to cut that value, and that drives it down to 0. So right now there's no tracking amplitude there. Okay, drag this here to about the 6-second mark, play it from here so we can check out the transition out. So transition in, it was sliding from below. Transition out is same as transition. All right, in terms of the animation components, it's going to animate by word. But this one's interesting. It's going to invert the transition in style. So right now the transition in style is slide from below. So when it's transitioning out, since this is checked, the invert transition is checked, it's going to transition out moving upwards. Right? And if you uncheck this, it's going to transition down, which is where it transitioned in from. Okay, and of course you can switch the component style, come in, animate by words moving down, and moving upwards I can switch to character random. So now when it transitions out, it goes. Right, last thing we're going to look at is text highlights, and this is actually very powerful. I'm going to set text to white, and then with the text highlights, what happens is you can select a subset of text characters to give them slightly different text looks. So it's a bit like highlighting specific text, but you can also remove certain characters from being seen and then create a duplicate of this instance of the text tool or the adaptive text tool, and then do nice interesting stuff, which I'll show you in another video. But it's also available in your setups. So if you purchase, you've got all this, you get a Premiere Pro project with these timelines in it. Alright, so what you get is 35 setups. As you can see here, there are 3 instances. I'm gonna disable this so you can see what's what. Oh, that's that. This is the second instance that handles that, and then third instance handles that row there. And right above each of these setups, this is one setup, blank space or a gap, and then another setup. And this one looks like this. So all these 35 setups, they're set up different ways, so you can deep dive in, see how they've been done, and use them as they are. You can just copy, go to a new sequence, and then paste them, set up your track selections. Okay, did I even copy it? Copy. Oh, it's there. Alright. Okay, and then now we're here in this composition. Sorry, in this timeline or sequence, and change your text. In this case, possibly you may want to change the tracking so that they're aligned. Space bar. And there you go. Right. I'll have a separate video how to mess about with the setups. So quickly come back here. Let's Get back to this guy. Alright, so we're back at the highlights. So select character, words, and lines. I'm going to go with words. And default, it selects 2 to 4, words 2 to 4. So this is second, third, fourth. And you can't see this, so I'll zoom in. So by default, when you enable one of the 3 text highlight properties or sections, you get an outline effect in this color. Okay, and let's say you want to change it here. So you've got a fill color for the highlight and also a stroke color. As you can see, there's opacity for fill and stroke. Right now, the fill color is by design at default set to 0 so that you can see clearly something, the highlight property or feature has been enabled. Okay, see. There you go. You can highlight an entire word, sorry, an entire line. So in this case, lines 2 to 4. If you want to highlight just lines 4, and take note, the blank or empty line is also part of the calculation. So if you wanted to highlight just lines 4, that's how you do it. And you can also have your highlights in the same color. I'm going to go with word, and let's say we want to highlight Adobe Premiere Pro. So we go words. Sometimes it's a hassle to calculate. You can just put the alt index to a very high value and this to a low value, and it slowly increases. I'm just hitting the up arrow and it'll increment 1 at a time. Now it's at 5, so okay, I've got my first value. If this is 5, this would be 6, this would be 7, so I can immediately punch in. So as you can see, the Adobe Premiere text is now has got a bold look to it, right? So it's quite useful, and that's also how you can see some of the highlights. This one here, right? Okay, so you can set up 3 types or 3 sections for highlighting within your text box. Right, so right now I've got just one instance. In other videos, I'll show you how to work with multiple instances. As you can see, with one instance, it's very, very quick, yeah? So when working, just for now, I'll let you know, when working with multiple instances, let's say I put this here. Change the text here. I'm gonna disable this. I've got a shortcut key for enabling and disabling, and it comes in really handy. So I'm gonna set my text to quite huge and also set it to a different font weight, and I'm going to animate by line. Okay. So the highlight comes in first. Sorry, not highlight, the main text, the headline comes in. And I'm going to enable second text, or the second instance of the adaptive text tool. I'm going to bring it down some more, and I don't want to animate by word, maybe I do. So I'm using my right arrow key and left arrow key to move my timeline indicator so that I can sort of guesstimate or approximate the movement, how they're moving. in relation to each other. There you go. So it's not too bad. I'm going to shorten my view here and then do a quick preview. Okay, so that's done. If I wanted to preview the out point, just set up my preview area accordingly. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're scrubbing the timeline indicator, sometimes the preview doesn't update so well. It's better to use the arrow keys. Alright, trim this there a little bit, and I can set up another preview here. So the middle part's static, so not necessary to preview anything. Again, this is all about working quicker, being more productive. Off you go. So that's how you get going with the adaptive text tool. Super powerful. If you've got lots of text animations like this for your corporate training videos, social media videos, this is beautiful, and it works with auto reframe with just a single step. In fact, I'll do auto reframe right now. Let's go one by one or 1 to 1. And unfortunately, Premiere sometimes it doesn't set up the pixel count correctly. In this case, it does a good job. 1080 by 1080. So as you can see right now, they're set for HD 1080. So I'm just going to select each instance here, come up here to my frame size and select 1 to 1. And you're going to resize and reposition as best it can to reflect the new frame size. And as you can see, the animation, it actually reanimates, yeah? It recalculates how to animate across the keyframes that were created in After Effects. And off you go. Okay, now someone was saying, oh, you can actually use the effect controls and resize, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's true, but sometimes if your text begins somewhere in the middle and it has to animate off, if you resize, you may see your text getting cut off along one of the edges. So the adaptive text tool handles that perfectly. And in terms of speed, you want to speed things up, make things a bit more lively. I've already shown you you've got your speed property and also your amplitude property, and then your direction and stuff. So all this is to take care of clients coming back and saying, oh, it's a bit too slow, it's a bit too fast, oh, I need to highlight certain words, oh, I need to highlight certain lines. Everything's taken care of with this one MoGRT. No need to look across 5, 10, 15, 20, 100. Some of you may have 100 to 300 MoGRTs. They're good, useful. Some are not so good also, and some are really slow, and some do not allow for adjustments that you really require or that the client has made a request for. So starting off with a tool like this, the adaptive text tool, you're assured of a very powerful system designed to allow you to animate quickly, complex text layouts and setups, and also to cater to clients' requests and last minute changes. Let's assume clients, oh, it's no more the adaptive tool. It's now known as the, I don't know why, but it's now known as a progressive tool. And there you go. Okay, so that's it. Questions posted below. There's a free trial, so look at the description on the video and download the trial and give it a run. Okay, cheers, bye bye.